Well,
Very enthusiastic.
yeah, this is an amazing start of the show with the Harry's laugh. It's just pressed recording. Hello, everybody. Good to see all of you here. Welcome to a new episode of our show, Tawheed, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. And today's episode is all about Rumi's poems and, some wise Muslim mystics. So we've chosen Rumi because one of the reasons why we chose Rumi is because of his, deep poems that really point us all at who we truly are, and it's all about love, and it's the same as what Sid used to share with people, and Rumi never missed to bring me back to that space where all things unfolds, that we all are connected in that space of oneness. So I'll give it over to Harry to share a bit about Rumi, and then if it starts, with the quotes that we've gathered for the show.
I just wanted to share a story because obviously there are people on this show that know a lot more about Rumi than I do. But I was reading the 40 Rules of Love, which I highly recommend to everyone here. I just love the book. And it's basically different realities, but part of the reality is the story about Rumi, and he meets his teacher, Shams. And Rumi is a guy who's famous for his oratory. He's the most respected person in the land that he lives in, and he's rich, and he's has it all. But inside himself, there's something burning. He knows he doesn't have the total answer. And Shams comes into his life, and one of the things that Shams sees is that he's a poet. Up to that point, he had a very strong feeling that he could not write poetry, and he was not a poet. But the gift of Allah came into him, and the spirit came, and through the teachings, as his level of consciousness rose into where what he knows and understands, the beauty of his poetry and his teaching changed, and everything changed. And what Shams taught him was to be detached to all outside things, your fame, your image, your beliefs. And bit by bit, he shattered it all. And out of it came this pure poet. Maybe the best, the greatest poet in the world. Somebody is the greatest poet in the world. Like in my mind, as a painter, Van Gogh, this is my mind, is the best painter ever. And so to me, Rumi is probably in the top 1, 2, 3, maybe number 1. So we have different quotes that Omar has picked out, and we're going to do a little, Omar is going to lead it. You got one, Omar?
Yeah. The first quote that I really love by Rumi is out beyond ideas and wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the word is too full to talk about.
Can you read it again one more time? It's you don't have it on the screen, eh? Okay, go ahead, read it again.
I can share it in the screen, but I'm using my laptop.
Because it's hard.
Okay, I'll read it again. I will read this again. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the word is too full to talk about. Did you hear it this time, Harry?
I'm still having trouble. One more time, please. Just one more.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the word is too full to talk about.
Beautiful, beautiful. Kathryn,
for me,
oh, you go first, though, please.
yeah, for me, it means that, you know, when there is always a place in us that doesn't know, you know, doesn't judge, you know, and when we operate from that place, we are all, you know, interconnected in there. You know, there is no like you're wrong, I am right, you should, you know, agree with me or not agree with me, or this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to believe, you know. And the more we see that, the less we you know, we will have wars, really, you know. We will fight with each other, like I am right, this is, I have to fight my, you know, these people want to harm us. Like recently some events happened in Paris. Just want to bring this just to give an example. There was a black guy who wasn't wearing a mask, and you know, and the police followed the man into, you know, they entered his house and they start beating him. And for me, this is, and the guy wasn't harmful to them. He wasn't trying to do anything or harm them, and he was just defending himself. So this is sad. So this is believing that these people from this color are trying to harm us, you know, are not good for our family, are not good in this. Like this is all based in beliefs and ideas, and it's creating a lot of chaos in this world. And like I'll bring it back to the quote, beyond ideas like of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. Like if these police officers saw that, like that we are all, you know, human, we are all drop in the ocean, not the, like we are not a drop in the ocean, we are the whole ocean in a drop. We're on the same boats of life. We're going through you know, kind of same challenges, like that's, you know, life throws at us, or that we see as problems. And so when we engage less with the noise that we have in our head, and you know, be silent, we see things clearly. We don't see people from another color, but we see a human being with a soul. And I want to get to know him or her and connect with that person, and so we could fall into that space of, you know, real connection and love. So that's what this quote means to me.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. You want to try, Kathryn? Just to throw a little whatever the throw is.
If my voice works for me, it's I woke up this morning a bit croaky. So beyond the wrongdoing and right doing, because wrongdoing and right doing a lot of the time is we're judging each other, who's right and who's wrong, or who's doing the right thing, who's doing the wrong thing. I mean, there's obvious things that are obvious to everybody, values that we have, common values that we know are wrong and right, but on a different level, like on a day-to-day level, when we have all this thinking, we're not appreciating that everybody is behaving based upon the feelings that come from the thoughts. And because everybody is doing that from their own thoughts, everyone has their separate reality. And how can any of us actually know what are the thoughts of another? So if we come to appreciate those separate realities, that judgment of right and wrong on that day-to-day level falls away. And that's where that field is. And when we're in that field, without that judgment that we're carrying for one another, we do have the connection that Omar was talking about, which I like to call in our Islamic terminology a fitra to fitra connection. So fitra, an Arabic word that is, I guess, described as our innate state. We're born on the fitra, we're born in that pure innate state. And when we can meet back in that pure state, we have the most beautiful connections. We see each other as the human beings that we are, and not label each other as the problems that we believe each other to be. And yes, that's definitely, I agree with Omar in much of what he said, is where peace in the world comes. So if you imagine yourself in a beautiful field, it's a peaceful place. And so if we're all meeting in that field, it's a peaceful place. That's how I see it.
That's beautiful. What I heard, like what came to me is as our level of consciousness rises, we live less in the subjective world, or the world of right and wrong, and more in the objective world. And everything gets to be more neutral. Everything that we're experiencing, things that got us very excited or very depressed, in the subjective reactionary world, on the objective world is more neutral, and more, as the levels go up, more and more neutral. And so that field that lives within us is much more easily seen, experienced, and eternal. Like, it's a big field. It's even a bigger field than a big field. It's a field of, to use Omar's word, love. And that seems to be a word that I mentioned to Joe. There's 19 words for love in Spanish. Well, I don't know how many words there are in Arabic for love, but I do know that they talk that there is a lot of talk about love. And Rumi certainly has a lot of talk about love. So the field of the love we have inside of ourselves, if only we do not get, as Kathryn was saying, so caught up in our separate realities. Oh, that was kind of neat. Excuse me. Anybody else? I never said anything like that before, so I was just kind of looking at. Go ahead, Joe, certainly.
But also, it's kind of, to me as well, is that the field is untainted. It's kind of undeveloped. It hasn't had a city built on it. It hasn't had people come. It hasn't been pasteurized. It hasn't been turned into farmland. So it kind of represents the innocence as well. And like the start of, like, everything starts as a field. And it kind of, I had the image of like the grass and that, and kind of starting as that. And it's before man has come and ploughed it and taken its kind of innocence and richness. And so it's like going back to the field.
That's true. That's beautiful. I never thought of that, but that is true. The earth
that fits beautifully with what I was saying about the fitra, because that's our innocent and innate state. So I like that.
Does anyone want to share anything about this quote? Something they saw? Or shall we just move to the next one?
Okay. These are marked, excuse me, Mark, these are quotes from Rumi. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry I missed them. I was late.
Yeah,
But,
you'll get number 2.
The second one that really loves is let the waters settle and you will see the moon and the stars mirrored in your own being.
One more time.
Let the waters settle and you will see the moon and the stars mirrored in your own being.
Hmm.
And the way I see this is, I've said it before, but it's like when you shake a snow globe, and you know it's not clear because there is this thingy all over the place, all over the snow globe. But once we stop shaking that snow globe, you know, the state of the snow globe becomes clear. And so that's how I see our, mind. We get caught up with this thought, and then, this thought make babies, and we have a psychotic break from reality. And then, oh, I'm feeling my thinking, and then I'm back again to that space and that clarity again, that presence, that in the now psychology that we've talked about.
Don't all talk at once.
Well, when I listen to this one, it reminds me of, sometimes you see those beautiful photos where you have a perfectly still lake, and it's almost hard to tell which way up is the right way, because the picture of the mountains and the trees and everything is almost perfectly mirrored in the surface of the water. And so in that moment when the water is completely still, you've got this, picture perfect image reflected back. But if you have a slight breeze come across the surface, it creates a ripple, and of course that image becomes slightly rippled. And then if it builds up to a storm, then there's barely any reflection at all, maybe no reflection at all. And when I look at that, what I think about is my own journey in this understanding, in coming to really come to know who I am. And so if I look at that surface of the river, I'm on the edge of, the lake. If I'm on the edge of the lake and the lake is very still, and that represents my mind being quiet, I see myself and who I truly am. And if there's people around me, I see them and who they truly are. But if there comes a bit of a breeze, I got a bit of thinking going on, then yeah, I still see them and I still see myself, but it's a bit distorted. But if there's a storm going on, there's no reflection. I've lost myself and I've lost them. That's how I see it.
How about you, Mark? It's a quote that I think you can identify with, because Mark lives in a beautiful area in BC, lots of ocean and nature, and a lot of his life has been in nature and so on. Go ahead, Mark.
well, I love that about the lake and about stilling the mind. I've just had I'm in property management with rental properties, and I've got COVID has really brought a lot of people down. And I've got some tenants who are overholding, haven't paid rent for months, and are heavily on drugs and hiding away in this property. We can't get them out. So long and short is, last night I was, I've been trying to help them get some understanding of what's going on, and, not they don't have to hide away. There's so much potential that they have. They're fine people there, you know, but they're hiding away. They've lost their drift. And last night I was just feeling anger. I didn't sleep much. You know, that how can they, you know, do this to everybody? And it's kind of representative of the world. How can we get so many discrepancies going on? You know, people, children starving and all of that. And you know, it's just that people they just don't know. From my own experience, I've been in places where I haven't known, you know, why I've been so caught up in. You can't see when you can't see. And it is about stilling. You know, I realized this morning, I watched a tape of Sid at Washington, D.C. And again, he was reminding us that, you know, there's a spiritual realm that we're all part of, and that we need to go to that. It's beyond our thinking of judgmental thinking. You know, that whole plane of judgmental thinking only gets you what goes on at that level. You know, you get a whatever level you dwell on is what you get. You get kind of a whole package, and things happen this way. You wonder why, you know, karma, or you might say karma, but you're really just living on that level where that sort of thing goes on. But you can't, you know, as far as this tendency, it's very, very frustrating, and it must be incredibly frustrating to live under a dictatorship or a, you know, and people need to realize that they can't, you know, the more they battle, the more they kick up this storm, like you're saying, it's not really helping. And I don't know where the answer, you know, how to affect it, but you're certainly not going to affect it by getting angry, I think, and just contributing to the storm. You need to find that deep peace with whatever's going on, and you know, really go to that next state of mind where you're in there, you're connected to the spiritual. Live in there as much as you can. Remind yourself as much as you can. Yeah, that's.
Oh, thanks, Mark. That was beautiful.
I mean, for me, because I mean, water became quite a big thing in some of my poems, and I mean, for one thing, I see because water is kind of, it's the essential to life, isn't it? And I mean, they say we're like 97% water, and everything needs water to live, and the earth needs water. And so I kind of see water as representing our soul. But when you see water, I mean, water can be really tranquil and beautiful, but it can be fierce. And actually, a thing came to me, it can be as fierce as a beast. I think I'll use that as in the poem, actually. But it can be really, and it kind of represents our thinking, how it can be like, we can be at that peace and tranquility, but then we can be at that really wild running river in a storm, and that can destroy ships and can destroy things and can destroy life. And it's kind of like when we get calm and tranquility, with the reflection of the moon and the stars kind of represents the universe for me. So it's saying we're kind of mirroring the universe when we get to that calmness, and then we kind of become one with the universe as like the stars and the moon in the water. And so our soul is reflecting it then. So to me, that's what it kind of means to me anyway.
Beautiful. While you're talking, and when I heard that quote, I felt it was very indigenous quote, because it's the connection to nature. And one of the things that I noticed with the indigenous people is that they sit and walk into silence much easier than most people do. Mm. And so I asked a very wise elder why that was so. And he said to me, it's instinctive to us. And what I heard from that is it's instinctive to everyone, because of course they're only a culture. And if they've opened up portals to the silence, we all have that silence within us. And within their expression of it, they don't actually worship the Father, they worship Mother Earth. They see that's the emanation of what Allah is that oneness with connection to nature.
And it's everything, isn't it? It's every, not every, only are we every person, but we're every animal, every bird, every insect, every microbe, every kind of atom, every kind of thing that exists, and we're connected to every planet and every star. And there's no space. There's no space between us and Saturn or Mars, or it's all filled, and we're all connected to it as well. So, I mean, we think there's space between us, but it's not, is there? Everything's connected and everything's joined.
Yeah, that's where the power is, as I see, Joe. It's what Sid talked a lot about, this oneness. And from the 40 Rules of Love, which maybe is a Rumi quote or Sham's quote, he says, we all feel incomplete. And what that quote is pointing to is where we feel what you were talking about, Joe, that oneness, complete connection to the oneness. I love Omar's metaphor about we are not a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is. How does that go again, Omar? I'm sorry. Just one more time for my ears.
It's not my quote. I've heard it somewhere, but it says that we are not a drop in the ocean. We are the whole ocean in a drop.
The whole ocean, and the way you explained it, that is the indigenous way of seeing life. And there was a quote by from Sid that Mamoon brought in, "God I am, but I am not God," type of thing. This connection to Mother Earth brings peace and divinity and nurturing, and because the mother is the mother spirit is very warm and supportive, and that feeling that we are loved always by Allah is expressed through that, anyway, for me. And when the mother does that, we feel confident to walk into the power of Allah, which, by the way, is so powerful that if you're in it even for a few seconds, that's about all I've ever been able to, to feel it. It's so powerful. It's so raw. It's so strong, and so on. So it's quite a metaphor. And the other thought I had was Sid always talked about we have to understand the nature of the principles. And I've struggled with that word, and Bill Pettit came on and we talked about that on our show, but the nature of the principles. And I think Rumi is pointing to the nature of the principles in that specific quote. And of course, you can't define the nature of the principles since they're formless, or the nature of Allah. It certainly would take quite a definition to really say what Allah is. The great nothingness, as native Indians, indigenous people say, the great mystery. Again, all different words for the same feeling that we are.
But what about all things? All things.
All things, yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? We can't think our way into that one.
I really liked what you said, Harry, about the personal and the impersonal and the neutral. you know, the impersonal is such a bigger thing, and it's just when we get into us against the world, or us feeling hurt or abused, or you know, or comparing or judging, or I think judging is really the thing that brings us out of that every time from the impersonal. It's somehow categorizing, or, you know, you know, different words to relate to judging.
It's part of who we are, Mark. You know, both are who we are. Of course, it's all one big, beautiful ball of love or energy or whatever but they're both. We need both the spiritual and the psychological to have an experience of the oneness in it. But in reality, the two are one, and indeed, we're talking about.
The more you can stay in the impersonal and the neutral, the better, and live simply, perhaps, and, you know, keep your
there it is. Simple. Yeah, simply and ordinarily. That's Sid's word, of course, but it's a tough word.
Yeah, so I want to share something that my previous guest speaker on the show that I started doing, Insightful Sharon from the Inside Out, and my first guest, never been on an interview or a show. It was her first time, and she was really all in that understanding, and she shared with us quotes by Rumi that I've never heard before, and that I want to share today. And it's not well, it's a quote. It's a quote. It says, "Don't look for it outside yourself. You are the source of milk. Don't milk others. Knock on your inner door, no other, sloshing knee deep in fresh river water, yet you keep wanting a drink from other people's water bags." Like, that was so beautiful when she shared it. Like, it was the first time I hear this quote, and I was trying to look for it. And then I scrolled up in our conversation to look for it. And like last minute, just before the show, I found it. You are the source of milk. Don't milk others. That's really speak to me, and especially the first, the beginning of the phrase. Don't look for it outside yourself. I mean, we all do this, right? We all try to look for ourselves outside. I mean, I still sometimes get caught up and do that. Like, oh, maybe I need to go and do a massage to feel better or something. But it's all the time within us. How amazing is that? Like, we can't escape the fact that it's built into into us. You know, this amazing gift of you know, experiencing life and feeling all these feelings. You know, we don't have to judge the feelings we feel. We can witness them and just flow with it, instead of getting attached and makes meaning out of it. And that's where we get hurt, in my opinion. So what do you see in this, Harry? I want to ask you. What do you want me to read it again for you?
One more time, yeah. I'm a slow listener.
I kind of guessed that. No, I kind of guessed that I need to hear to read this again. But yeah, it's fine. Don't look for it outside yourself. You are the source of milk. Don't milk others. Knock on your inner door. no other, sloshing knee-deep in fresh river water, yet you keep wanting a drink from other people's water bags.
What simple common sense I heard in that was, of course, taking from others is greed, and that is a very ugly quality that has ruined the whole world. And Sid always emphasized being in a state of service to others, and taking that even deeper, that the happiness and the wisdom has to be felt within you first before you have anything to share outside. But what I have seen is the less I take, the more is given. The less I need affirmations from other people of who I am, the more free I am. And the more I give, the more I receive. The more I share, the more I grow. From inside out, not just doing it from a mental perspective type of thing. So I feel the world has to hear that message on a deeper level, because there's a lot of people who worship money. And in business, the idea is to maximize your return on investment, or and in many cases, hurting other people while you're doing it. So the wise man can take money, but he's in a state of service to other people, and thus receives all the love. That's the natural, that's the supernatural connection we have to life. So I love that quote. It's so practical. And yet eternal.
I think first going to what Omar was saying about feelings, and I think maybe a lot of conflicts happen because people blame other people for their feelings, rather than if they realise they create their own feelings and that it's not other people's fault why you feel the way. I mean, it kind of would maybe stop a lot of conflicts. That's kind of one. Also, like you say about not realising it's inside us and the outside, I mean, it's kind of to me why countries conquer each other, isn't it? It's always looking for more, and then they realise they don't get it, so they want more and more because they think they'll get that kind of with Allah, or kind of what word you want to use. And if people realise they had it within themselves and they didn't need it outside, then they wouldn't have to do conquering, and they wouldn't have to take countries or whatever, kind of get more power. And it's that fear, isn't it, that you lose that power, and they kind of feel that they'll no longer be a adequate person. And I remember, I know you said don't mention names, but someone was saying they worked with someone who they made a big thing about. They had $600 million, and they asked them what was their biggest fear, and it said waking up the next day and they'd lose it all. And they're saying that, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of people think they'll lose the power or they'll lose the money, and they'll no longer be a full person, or they'll no longer be a whole, and they realise that actually it's already there with them, and they don't need that. But also, money's just an exchange, isn't it, of goods, because it's a bit of paper. And I was watching quite a good film by he was an Israeli historian, and he talks about the difference between humans and chimpanzees, and he's saying that we believe stories and that, and he was saying that money's a story and countries are stories, and it is stories, isn't it? And he's saying if you gave a chimpanzee $10 and says give me a banana, they wouldn't give you a banana. And it's kind of like that, really. It's kind of money's there to exchange for things, for services, or for that. But it's not our Lord, or it's not our God, or it's not our Allah, is it? It's not. But people see it as that, and then it becomes our master. Well, if we just saw it, it's just something to exchange, and we do obviously need money because we kind of need it to exchange for other things, isn't it? But it's kind of a story we've created to exchange things. So yeah, it's kind of that, really. It's kind of realizing first that we have it within us, and then we don't really need to do bad things to people to make ourselves feel better, and we don't have to blame other people for how we feel.
Yeah, this is interesting what you just mentioned about money, and I want to share something briefly about money, like why money was created in the first place. Because back in the days, people were exchanging goods. Like I give you a pen, you give me I don't know, you give me something else. Basically, it's just exchanging stuff. And so sometimes when people travel, they had hard time exchanging stuff, because like I couldn't exchange a cow with, I couldn't bring with me my cow so I could get something, the same value. And that's where people created money, so they could, travel and exchange, uh, you know, uh, the value of that coin with something else. And so we associated these coins and this paper with, a lot of feeling security and, happiness and this and that. And it's just, piece of paper. Like, can you imagine a piece of paper, like a feeling machine, give me feelings and making me feel, not safe? Or and I just I was listening to Alan Watts the other day, and he mentioned something really interesting. Like he mentioned, like, if you're the richest person in the world, if you go to the Sahara Desert, what would you do with your money? How would money benefit you? Like, so it's only good in certain places. That's what I was trying to say. And he said something else. He said, like, when you're full, you can't eat all the food on the table. Like, you can't eat more. You are full.
It's interesting.
Even you have a lot of food.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're
Not eat
talking
all.
about, Omar, because when we were on Salt Spring, we were very spiritually rich. We had the whole thing, except we were materially poor. And we all said once the money came, we'd have it all. But it didn't work that way, because we didn't have the wisdom of what we were experiencing to take and bring a balance within that. And so money became a test and a trial and error. And one of the things that I've noticed with irony about the world is, when I grew up in North America, most people were relatively poor. My dad made $100 a week, and we lived relatively poorly, type of thing, but simpler. And we were more satisfied with it. And the dream of having a lot of money wasn't such an easy reality to see would happen. So we weren't dreaming about that. We weren't. And then the world technologically and economically took off like a rocket, and people are less happy. They have indeed more. I mean, we're all living like rich people. I mean, it's incredible what we have, and compared to what people lived back in the 50s and so on. Yet people are complaining more and more self-absorbed about money than they were back in that time. And it's a sickness, it's a virus, it's a material obsession, where the phrase my mother had when I was young, she says, just as easy to fall in love with a rich woman than a poor woman. That was her way of equating, what I should look for in a woman. And of course, she's right. It is just as easy. But if you're going to go for the money, you might miss the boat a little bit. And that's the world. It's missed the boat a little bit. Just hasn't seen who we are right at the core. We don't have to take. We give. And the more we give, the more we feel in our hearts. That's all I know. That's all I know. I don't know anything more than that.
When I
There is a room.
Or just let Kathryn go.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathryn.
When I listened to that quote, I saw the material as the milk and the water from a more spiritual perspective, rather than being about tangible things, being more about the expectations that we have on other people to make us feel better, that it's about our relationships, and that really it's only a relationship with ourself that we need. We don't need other people to make us feel happy. So I didn't see it from a material perspective. And the verse of the Quran that came to my mind when I was listening to it was where Allah says, Allah is sufficient for us.
Sorry, I missed that. Say one. I'm sorry, Kathryn. Can you say one?
That Allah is sufficient for us.
Oh,
meaning that's all we need is the relationship with Allah, which we feel from within here. So that's where we look in and we find our relationship with Allah. That's all we need. We don't need it's nice to have all those relationships, but we don't need the relationships. And one of the things that I've been experiencing is the beauty of when two people come together without needing each other. You have that honest relationship. There's no sort of codependency or anything. It's just the beauty of being. And that's when you can really live that Allah is sufficient for us. I don't need anybody else to be okay. I am okay. That's how I took it. So I wasn't thinking of the milk and the water from a material perspective, but to be a metaphor for how we already have it, but we think we need it from others.
And for those who are wondering, when she uses the word Allah in 3P, that's mind, universal mind. That's just universal mind, psychological word for Allah or God or whatever word you want to equate.
Yeah, beautiful way you showed,
word is
Kathryn. Yeah. I just wanna move on to another quote so we could make it like at least 4 quotes or 5 before we finish the show. Who?
Just a sec. Joe has just one more little something to add.
But I think if we use the word Allah, is that or universal mind, if you talk 3Ps, is that it's pure love. And if it's pure love doesn't have judgment. And so it will never judge us, and it will just love us, whatever happens and whatever we do. And it's forgiveness as well. And we can always be forgiven, and we always will, and our sin won't be judged. And so it's kind of loves us, whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
This is fun, isn't it? Isn't this neat? This is like, it's really.
I think that the next quote is a really short one, but it will add something to the show. Be melting snow, wash yourself off yourself.
Ooh, just say it again. I missed that. Was a little bit too deep for me to grasp the first time.
Okay. Be melting snow, wash yourself off yourself.
I have no idea what that means.
You know, for me, it means to. It reminds me of another Rumi's quote that I didn't write down, but I just remembered I had it on my my wall on my room in London. I used to live in London, and it says, "Live where you fear to live." No, I think I forgot it. Just give me a sec. Live where you fear to live. It doesn't start
Just
like this, but yeah, forget safety. I forgot the beginning. Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. Destroy your reputation. Be notorious. So this part that we just read, it's kind of remind me of destroy your reputation. And by this, like, meaning don't stick with your ego, like your self-image, the image that you have of yourself, because it's not true, because that boosts your ego and gets you more caught up in life, in the illusion of life. And so when, you know, wash yourself off yourself, meaning to let go of your ideas about yourself, because that's just pure ego.
Okay.
That's how it resonates with me. I don't know about
Sounds right.
attendees.
I got another picture from it actually. So when water is frozen in the form of snow, you know, once the snow lands, it's sort of stuck there. It's rigid, it doesn't move. But when it melts, it becomes fluid like water and it flows. And that's what life is like. And then, of course, once it's water, you're able to wash yourself with it. And so whatever it is that had you stuck is washed away. And so you're just in the natural flow of things. That's what I took from it.
Wow. I love that. I love that. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, what it kind of meant to me is because snow's like, I kind of see water as being like the kind of form, the energy or the soul, and snow's kind of one form it's taken, and so it says like it melts back into its original self, and then it's saying washing yourself of, like, because we all create a story of what we believe we are, and then it's saying like wash yourself of that story to who you truly are.
Yeah, that's back to ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why it uses snow is
it's
because it knows a form, isn't it, of like what water takes. It's one kind of form.
yeah, exactly. It's funny how we all have different, we see it differently, and it's all just beautiful, you know. I mean, I just loved what Kathryn shared with us. Yeah. Does anyone got anything to add, or
I have a
someone
I have a story from 40
amazing?
Rules of Love, so it's not my story, but Rumi is this. It relates to this quote from what I heard you guys talking, because I couldn't understand the quote. The Rumi, as I mentioned, was this heavily prestigious, most respected sage in the land, very wealthy, had never been exposed to the ordinary people and people in poverty and people in addiction, etc. And that might relate to you, Mark, as well. You know, this exposure to another class of people. And so Sham says to Rumi, and in the Muslim faith, you're not supposed to drink alcohol, and especially someone like Rumi, whose reputation is pristine. And he said, I want you to get 2 bottles of wine. Go to the local cafe or pub or whatever it is and get 2 bottles of wine. And he was shocked, but because he respected Shams like we respect Sidney Banks, he did it. And he went to the place, and the shock that there was amazing. But he sat down next to this really cool drunk who had a big drinking problem, but very, very cool. And he started to enjoy himself. And he had been exposed to all of this, the people and a new crowd and stuff. And of course, his reputation was ruined. All the people who were extra zealous and religious and adamant about who he was and all of that shattered and stuff. And he came back to Shams and he says, here are the 2 bottles of wine. And Shams says, I see you've learned your lesson. Cracks, breaks it open. We don't have to drink it. or anything like that. And it feels a lot like what Omar was talking about, is we have these images, and then life brings us, like to Mark, experiences that shatters his image, forces him to look deeper inside to what other people that he isn't normally exposed to feel and see. And the less, as all those images broke away, that's when Rumi became a poet. See, he didn't believe he could be a poet. He had a thought in his mind that he was not a poet. And then after all of those experiences of shattering all these images that he was attached to, this new sage came out. That's the story from 40 Rules of Love. So cool.
Yeah, I love the story, Harry. And
It's beautiful.
again,
it really, Omar, I want to emphasize, it really impacted me, that story. Like, it was a big teaching. Because, of course, we don't want to go around with 3P telling people we got something better than you have, or etc. You know, that's nonsense.
that there is only one truth, as Sid Bank used to say. So there are many people pointing at the same direction, with maybe using different words, but there is only one truth. You know, that's for sure.
That was one of his absolute main messages. Absolute, right from the beginning.
And also that you don't keep looking for more. If you've had even a glimpse, and we all have had glimpses, you be happy with that, and let it have its way. Be grateful.
So many
Otherwise, you
gifts.
lose it.
What?
Go ahead, Sharon.
I was just going to say that one of the I've received so many gifts, but related to this, but challenging. I'll have things go into my head, and I'll say, my first thing is, oh, I don't do that. I can't do that. I'm like, that's not true. And it's just opened every day. It's a new gift, a new present. And I'm like, I don't have those. I see I had a lot of rules for myself of what I could do, little things, big things, and it's still evolving. It's still hard for me to articulate, but it's wonderful. And yes, and shedding the old skin. I can do anything I want. I haven't figured it out yet, but what a gift. Thanks.
Yep, that's a bullseye.
And that's why we're doing this. Yeah, that's just beautiful way shared, Sharon, actually. It really touched me.
This was very interesting today. I really like sort of, and I love hearing different people's ideas and opinions, what they're seeing and so on. So uplifting. And Kathryn, thank you for coming and sharing. It's brought a beautiful flavor to the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, we're thrilled. We're thrilled.
And Joe.
So I think we approached the
everyone.
end of the show. So if anyone wants to share anything, please do before we end this. Otherwise, we'll just do our thing and just finish it up.
I think I wasn't going to make this into a podcast, but I think I will. This would be kind of nice for people to hear some of the quotes, and maybe it will answer one or two questions for people.
I think I'll just say before I go, as I was talking to a friend of mine who worked, I think it was for UNICEF or one of them charities, and he worked in Africa for a year. And he said that materially, I mean, we don't know the meaning of having nothing, but he said they were the most happy people he's ever met. and they were just so joyful in that, and it just had the whole community in that, and it was I think that kind of emphasizes it really.
Does.
Mm.
Does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll just go and end it. I mean, I really enjoyed this one. Absolutely enjoyed this one. I didn't expect it to be this way, but hey, who am I to kind of guess what's gonna happen? Anyways, with my little mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just makes me more humble and more open. And I absolutely enjoyed this. Thank you all for coming and sharing from your heart. Thank you, Harry, once again for sharing your wisdom. And yeah, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. And see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Bill Pettit. Bill Pettit.
Yeah. We have a special guest, Dr. Bill Pettit. He's gonna be talking about the 3 principles, you know, through his experience. Well, he's a psychiatrist. I think it's gonna be absolutely amazing. So hopefully see you there.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was very nice.